Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to Grow Food SA. This is Brian. Today we're going to be doing a late spring, start of summer kind of garden check-in. So we'll look at a couple of the systems that I got installed this year, and we'll kind of talk about different ways that I use them. If you guys want more information or more detail on any of these, send a comment and I can go ahead and go into more detail in another video on that. So let's check it out. Okay, first thing we got here is we've been blessed with a lot of this rain, so got to try to store what you can. So we got a 1,000-gallon tank out here. These usually run about $1 a gallon, but there's price breaks as you go further up. So a tank like this size, 1,000 gallons, usually is about $800. That's where that price break starts to happen. You can also use the 250-gallon totes, but it's pretty simple. You know, just got a outlet here. What we do for this, since this is at ground level and we don't really have enough gravity, we do have some water pressure built up by the weight of the water on itself, but really that's not enough. So what we do is we open up the valve here, and then we go and just plug in a small pump on the porch, and then we're able to use the water here. So you can see right now, just with it draining, we don't really have any water coming out, so that's why we use pump assistance for that. And we're able to buy just a cheap little pump that we're able to plug in externally to it and use that. I think it was only about $30 pump here. Next we got a really successful kind of ground cover and fighting back some of that grass is yarrow. And then followed up on here is blackberries that do really well. So we're growing them up on this arch here that also supports the drain valve for the tank, and other vining plants like this passion flower, which has brought in, as you can see, some caterpillars. This is the Gulf fritterly caterpillar. Those turn into a butterfly that almost looks like a monarch. As we go through here, we're kind of working on some of the guilds. This is the drainage ditch where our washing machine line drains out into this pit and irrigates some of the herbs. We got figs, Mexican mint marigold, Barbados cherry, which actually didn't really is coming back from the freeze. So that's another thing that we're really looking at here, is after experiencing such cold weather here, we need to start planning more accordingly for that. There's probably no citruses and things like that for this time being. We're sticking with stone fruits. Things like this apple survived. These peaches are doing really well. These survived. We got goji berries down here. And then we kind of go into some taller plants here. So again, what we're working with is we're trying to use some of the taller plants for shade. So we got a mixture of sunflowers, native sunflowers that come in. And we also have large amaranth. So you can eat the amaranth leaf, you can eat the amaranth seed. We're gonna wait for this amaranth to turn a little bit older, brown on top, and then we can harvest those and get the seed. It's almost like a little quinoa kind of seed. And below we have various things like beets, mustard greens, things like that, all intercrop in here. And what we do is we just try to lay down as much seed to get enough density that helps fight back all this grass here. Again, we want really compact growing, but we want to still keep things open for aeration. So we got some tomatoes here that are ready to be harvested. And then we come up to our beans. So unfortunately, another plant that didn't really make it was this lemon eucalyptus, and this stalk had died up here, and we went ahead and decided to plant green beans all along there. So we have green beans growing up in here, so those are ready to harvest. And the lemon eucalyptus is still coming through down here. We'll be using that for mosquito spray out here. The other reason why we keep sunflowers around is because sunflowers help with pollination. They use these cattle panels to make arches. This also provides spaces for vining plants, like these green beans here. Peas have also grown on here, and we're also able to put some of the tomatoes on here. These can be purchased for as low as about $35 each panel, or you can find them dented at a site. There's usually a top or a bottom, a couple of ones that get dented, and those are usually half off. So you can sometimes find them for $15 and make these arches. Again, that elevates things and creates shade. So as the sun starts to set over here, then we got shade on some of these plants over here. We have a lot of our lettuces going to seed now as it warms up. We're gonna go ahead and let those drop some of the seeds. That's what allows us to get some plants for next year. We got peppers that are really gonna do well for the summer. And we got a couple more varieties of the amaranth leaves. All interplanted in here is some more lettuces that are still kind of surviving. This black seed Simpson lettuce has not gone to seed yet. So that's kind of a good option to kind of keep around. We got long beans growing up on this arbor. And all throughout here, we'll notice bits of castor bean from a large tree that I had here on site. I've been keeping this castor bean here almost as green mulch, or as a green cover. If we need more light in a certain area, if the castor bean gets a little too big, we're able to pull it out and deposit it here and let it decompose into the rest of the beds here. Another thing that you can throw up on some of these arbors are things like these squashes here. There's various different squashes: butternut squash, spaghetti squash. You will see with some of them that they actually want to grow into the ground. So you'll see little root systems like this come off of here. So that typically means it likes to run onto the ground and replant itself. But you can still get away with growing them up on an arbor so that you can, again, have more space and be able to create more shade. So again, we have more peppers here. This is basket of fire, which is a nice kind of short Thai chili, spicy. Then we go back into another plant that we can hang on here, which is zucchini. Or, I'm sorry, this is cucumber. And then we have a couple of butternut squashes over here. We have the native lantana, as Sam Coffin has helped kind of teach me that the leaf for the native lantana I use a lot whenever I have injuries. This is just a splint. This is spraying, but if I had an open wound, I can use this small cut or things like that. Maybe not a large wound, but be able to break this up, make a poultice out of it, and apply that directly to the injured area and use it as an antiseptic. Some of the berries that come off of that. And things like Swiss chard, also large broadleaf, work really well underneath these canopies of some of these large taller plants that are kind of providing shade here for us in the summer. Over here we have another tight little guild. We have silver ponyfoot that's kind of taking some of the ground cover. We have things like our other medicinal plant comfrey that I also use with the other plants to kind of help make a poultice for small cuts and injuries like that. We have some caterpillars that are also coming in on this mountain laurel. And we have the shrimp plant back here, which works really well in the shade as a flowering plant underneath the protection of this plum that survived exceptionally well. Bananas, although they're tropical, did not survive the freeze, but they will come back. Unfortunately, it takes a whole season through the winter of a mild winter before they're actually producing. So this resets them, so we'll have to see what we can get next year for any of them, but they can still also provide shade and kind of have a nice like tropical feel to a place. All of the citrus now are going to be planted in containers. This is with the hopes that we can go ahead and move these containers into an area whenever a freeze happens and try to take care of them there. This place got a little out of control. This was reseeded loofah that is taking over the south-facing wall again here. And this really is to serve the purpose of having a broadleaf here to protect this hot wall during the summer and hopefully keep it cool. We also have blackberries growing up and through here. We're trying more blueberries, raspberries, and other kinds of berries in here. We also have a dwarf mulberry that is supposed to only get about 10 or 12 feet tall. And we got other dwarf peaches and things like that, ground cover around here to help contain some of that. We are composting directly into some of the garden areas. We just kind of put this container out here, let compost directly onto the ground, and then we can move that out later. Okra is another good plant to grow for the summer. It can tolerate the heat, originated out of Africa. And also eggplant is another good one to grow that can tolerate all of the heat that we have in the summer. So this summer heat has been here for about a week now, and it's really having a toll already on some of the plants. But we can tell out here that we have bee balm and catnip that are forming some of the guild and support networks for this nectarine tree that also survived the freeze. We got some tansy down there as well, and some nopales. So these jujubes are actually really good to grow here, really drought tolerant. They can really kind of be abandoned or low care and just exist off of the rainfall that we have in our area. Here's another jujube. This is the sugarcane jujube, and that was the Lee jujube. Both of these are self-fertile, so they should be able to produce. It produces like an apple-like fruit, and then eventually that fruit will kind of turn more into a date. We have other things out here like some more figs, and again some of the loofah that is just growing kind of everywhere, but it's a really useful plant, used for textile, used for a sponge, a lot of great things about it. So we go through here, we got another kind of wild tomato that's growing. Again, we just want a lot of the seeds to kind of be coming through here. After a lot of that rain, we also found out that we kind of need to make series of canals for drainage systems here. So we have a berm and swell that goes right through here, and the water puddles up right here. I had to make a little relief valve, and this will drain down and go to some of the rest of the trees that we got on the back part of the property. Two examples of, again, the castor bean kind of growing through here, but we're actually just going to go ahead and let it stay here because right now it's preventing any grass from growing up in through here. We also got potentially what is a cucumber or another loofah growing out over here. So we're going to encourage these broadleaf plants to kind of cover this bottom here to protect this plum that's growing here. At any point in time, if we need to open up some light or get rid of some of these, we can just remove them. So they're really useful to kind of have. Here's another kind of small example of a quick guild that you can kind of build with some canopy layers for a Pakistan mulberry that'll be on here. So we're going with the idea that mulberries work well here, and we're going to experiment with different varieties. This one is about a 5 to 6 inch long mulberry that grows on there. So as we were talking about shade, we're also going with things like grapevines that we can grow up onto a large trellis and shade the back patio area. We also know that the sun sets over here. It's often pretty hot, so we're going to go ahead and try to grow some other trees here. We have a moringa here, which has a very nutritious edible leaf. And then we also have Fuyu persimmons that'll be growing here. So hopefully those also provide some shade onto the patio and keep us cool this summer. One of my favorites is the Greg Mistflower, also a good ground cover that can kind of help keep some of the grasses back. And so again, you can just see the complexity and the wild nature of some of this gardening techniques. We have various plants growing all throughout here. I think there's even some blackberries again down in here. So really, try to think of as much diversity that you can add into your environments, including flowers and useful plants. And here's the latest kind of feature that's on here. We got a composting toilet that we are installing here. So we'll have sawdust that goes right here, some steps leading up to this. This bucket goes directly into our containment system. This will be a completely closed containment system. So it'll be either a barrel or some kind of bin that you make all your deposits in. It has no holes in it. We'll have tubing in there to allow air to circulate throughout the bin for almost like how you would make other kinds of advanced composting things. And then what we do is, once this gets about 3/4 full, we remove the lower receptacle, place a lid over it, let it sit for about 8 months to about a year, and then that should be composted enough and free of the pathogens to apply to the garden directly. After that gets removed, we install a new fresh container up underneath here, and we're able to make new deposits.